Hi, my name is Irina Barnett.
And I'm Isabella Magidson, and we are the co-host of the Moments That Define Us podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. It's going to be a good one. But before we dive into our episode, for our new listeners, we wanted to give a brief introduction of who we are and why we decided to start this podcast.
Yeah, so my name is Isabella, and I grew up in a small town, and I met Irina around 20 years ago. She was my au pair, and for those of you who don't know what an au pair is, it's a live-in nanny that's usually from another country, and they usually live with a family for 1 year.
My name is Irina, and I'm originally from Ukraine, and since I was Isabella's au pair, we kept in touch for the past 20 years, and we decided, why don't we start a podcast? The reason we decided to start the podcast is because the way the world is right now, where there's so much divide, sharing a story is so important. Because I feel like we are so much more similar and we have so much in common than we realize.
We want this podcast to give the vibe of two friends in a coffee shop sharing a cup of tea while spilling the tea.
Hi, Bella.
Hi, Irina.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. We're in a new studio. We are Studio.
Fancy, you guys. We're in a new studio, aka my house.
And we are working on, what is this little table? Children's size table?
Yeah, it is. So our equipment, and we will post a video or a picture. So it's this little table where my kids eat, and we are in my bedroom, and so we have two chairs from the kitchen and the kids' table.
And the kids are chained to the couch. So I'm just kidding.
The kids are downstairs with my husband watching a movie, so we can record in peace.
The kids were pretty upset that we took their dinner table, so shout out to the kids. Thanks for sponsoring this episode.
Exactly. Our first sponsor is my children and their table. No, but this is just, we were just talking with Bella today how when you start something, whatever business you start, unless you have all the fancy studios and all the fancy whatever you need, whatever business you're starting, usually what is people like, oh, I start something in my garage, or I start something and I was recording, which for us, right? Mm-hmm. We started recording, the first one, where was it? In your closet.
So we've upgraded from that. I would say this is an upgrade for sure.
We are out of the closet, and now we're in the room, a room.
And we had to turn off the air conditioning because it was loud.
It was making noise and we could hear it, so we turned the air conditioning. So everybody in my house is suffering because I am doing this podcast.
We're sitting in a pool of sweat.
Pretty much. Well, it's going to start
all for
soon.
You guys, right?
All for you guys. So comment, rate our podcast, follow us on social media at Moments That Define Us. Our email is momentsthatdefineus@gmail.com. You can always submit your stories, questions, concern, whatever you need from us. But should we talk about the last episode we did?
Yeah, the last episode was awesome. We got some great feedback, and we actually had some people submit stories after we released the podcast, and we thought we could share them at the beginning of this one. And if you want to hear more about the topic, you can go listen to our previous episode. And for those of you who don't know, our last podcast was about filters. So somebody submitted their story about filters. So this is what they said. I think it's so hard to find a healthy balance between showing your authentic self on social media and only showing the good stuff. Working in TV, for example, has made me terrified to post anything without makeup because I feel like people will call me a catfish. We don't have filters on TV, of course, but recently at an event, a viewer came up to me and told me, I'm so ugly in person. Now I want to use filters even more.
Wow. So that's somebody who works in television. And also, I just think if you have something negative to say, just don't fucking say it.
That's a bully. That person is a bully, and that is a trash person. But also, that's the reality. I mean, TV, like, this person is very intelligent and has worked hard to be where they are, and to have somebody still judging them based off their looks, even though they've accomplished so much, is really sad.
Yeah, I just feel like when you have a critique to give, right, feedback on the work somebody's doing, then yes, I think feedback is good because it makes us do better and try something different, try to be better version of ourselves. But when somebody straight up come to you and say, I think you're so ugly in person, why are you taking energy out of your life and using this towards this negative thing?
No, and I think I listened to this podcast the other day about how he was calling out bullies, and he was like, they're trash people, and he's like, before you come at me and say I'm doing the same thing bullies would do, he said there's a difference between somebody being mean to just be mean and calling people out on their bullshit.
Exactly.
Right? So this person's trash.
Yeah,
and we're not being a bully by saying that, because that's not okay. But yeah, that's really uncomfortable, and it's sad because society's put so much pressure on this person, and now they don't even feel comfortable presenting themselves without a filter.
And then she said, now I feel like I need to use more, right? Mm-hmm. More filters.
More filters.
I feel like there's so much to dig in, and we will talk more in other episodes on beauty, the idea of beauty, right, and all of that. But please, people out there, if you have just some horrible thing to say about somebody's look, especially, or anything, just don't. Just don't.
And someone also reached out to me. In our last episode, I talked about how I wear filters, and I have a big nose. I'm Jewish.
Hashtag Jewish and proud.
Hashtag Jewish and proud. But they commented, they're like, how come the filter makes your nose smaller? And I thought that was a good point, is the filter is creating the standard. Like, who decided that a small nose was beautiful?
Yeah. The bigger question, right, is who is behind the filters and who is deciding
these beauty standards
for
us, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not even deciding them anymore. And the big eyes, and like they decide your eyebrows, the shape of your eyes, the shape of your lips.
So it's better not to use. Just show your authentic self. Mm-hmm. And still not liking filters.
Yeah. Well, anyways, if you want to hear more about that, go to our past episode, The Reality of Filters. But for this episode, we have a very special topic. Today, we are going to be talking about menstruation, period, blood coming out of your hoo-ha.
I wonder how many times we will say hoo-ha in this episode.
Anyways.
For anybody out there, if you can count how many times we say it,
maybe it can be a drinking game. Take a shot every time we say hoo-ha.
Yeah.
You have 2 shots, maybe 3.
You're welcome, people.
Anyways, it's something that's so taboo, and half the population goes through it, or has gone through some sort of menstruation, and it's still like, oh, don't talk about it. Hide your tampons, hide whatever products you're using to heal it.
Speaking of hide your tampons and this topic being a taboo, so I remember like being at a club, when girls always like, oh, and when a girl asks another girl, do you have a tampon? It's this like, you have to ask like, do you have a tampon? And then, sure, yes, I do, right? And you can't even like, it has to be this like...
It has to be like a drug deal. Like, you can't just hand it in person. It's got to be like
secret
under the
mission.
Table.
Come with me to the bathroom and hand me there so only the female can see it, right? I don't know. It's to me, it's like... I mean, I'm not saying to go around the club and like wave your tampon. Oh my God, this is gonna get... Oh my God.
That's a nice image in my head. Blood squirt. Okay, anyways.
No, don't go there. It's don't go there. Okay. But you know what I mean? It's like it's this like secret mission. Come with me and like give it to me there so nobody can see it.
Well, and I saw this product on Amazon. You know how you have to hide alcohol to bring it into club, where you can
I don't know. Do you know how to hide alcohol? I usually buy my alcohol at the club.
Well, sometimes it's expensive or whatever, but there was a tampon. You could put alcohol in a tampon. It looked like a tampon case. It wasn't an actual tampon. It was like in the plastic inserter. to bring it into like clubs or things, so you didn't have to buy it there. And I was like, of course it would work, because a security guard that's checking your bag, he sees a tampon, he's gonna run for the hills.
Yeah.
So of course it's gonna, isn't that brilliant? It's $1 million idea right there.
Oh my.
Maybe we'll attach the link in this episode so you can get one if you are so inclined to.
Yeah, if you want to bring your alcohol in a tampon-looking container, I encourage men to do that.
Yeah. I would love to see that.
Anywho, so all jokes aside, right? Because funny, all of that, tampon container, bring to the club. But all jokes aside, this topic, when you say period or menstruation, it's like it makes people uncomfortable. And I'm not just talking about men, right? And again, not generalizing. So like, I'm not saying all the men feel uncomfortable, but like, yes, they do. And even for some women, right? Like I said at the clubs, like, oh my gosh, let's not, because it's like it's this shame that we feel around a period. So have you ever like felt any shame, or maybe somebody shamed you, like at school? I don't know, just that you felt like, oh my gosh, I'm like.
I feel like I used to have a lot of shame about it, and now I don't. And we'll get into it later in the podcast, but I've done a lot of work around it. But I've had just a horrendous time with my period. I've had really bad period cramps, as I'm sure most people that menstruate out there can relate to.
But what about
shame?
Yeah, what
shame wise? I feel like in school when we were doing our health class, when we were learning about like getting your period. I remember in middle school in 5th grade, we had a sex ed, and the men went to one room and the girls went to the other room.
What grade was it?
5th grade.
5th grade.
5th grade, and the guys learned about how like their balls were gonna drop and they were gonna get a deeper voice, and they came out of the class and they're like, "Yeah, my balls already dropped." 10 years old. And then we went into a class and they were telling us about periods and how like you have eggs and the uterus, and they're talking about all that. They didn't go into much detail, but I remember them saying this is something that you need to keep to yourself. This is, it's gross, but I mean, it wasn't like this is gross and you should hide it. They weren't so blunt, but it was pretty blunt. They didn't teach us like, how to take care of it. It was like, here's a tampon, here's birth control, and we're 10 years old. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And they're talking about how it can like stop you from having your period and how it's gonna come. And they were talking about the blood coming out and how it's painful. And I remember like girls were like walking out of there crying. I don't remember so much what they said, but I remember the emotion it gave me.
Yeah.
And I remember girls were coming out of that class like crying.
And I'm sure those were happy tears.
No, they weren't happy tears. They were horrified. They're like, I don't want to get this. I don't know what this is. This sounds like a nightmare. I can't believe I'm going to have this the rest of my life. And like, you're 10, so you can't process it. And then just compared to the men where they're coming out like, yeah, I'm a big husky guy. And I remember the guys kept like sneaking into the room to try to like.
To girls' room?
Yeah, to our classroom where we were learning about it, to see what was going on and what videos we were watching. And it was just like, it was really embarrassing, and that was like very shameful. And I think that's where like the shame initiated. I remember
it's interesting the education, right, that we get around that. Like for me, I don't remember getting anything about period. Like I don't remember learning about this.
No, and it's awful. And they give you period books, and most of it's like your hormones are going to change and you're going to be attracted to guys and you're going to grow hair down there.
I don't even remember reading a book.
Really?
I don't even remember reading that. But you know what's interesting? So I'm listening, you know how like I have CDs in my car, right? That you shamed me about it last week.
Oh, yeah.
So this book I'm listening to is by Gabrielle Union, and she said we're going to need more wine. And so she talks about, and she just turned 50, I think, right? So this book, she talks about, about her childhood and growing, where she grew up and all of that. But I remember specifically because how you just talked about how it was in your school, right? So she was talking about how it was like basically the education that they got is when you get your period, then you can get pregnant basically by getting your period. How that all education was wrong, and then she had to
Yeah,
like
exactly. And it's like horrifying. It's like when you get your period, like you're gonna become sexually active and you're gonna get pregnant and die. That's the only possible outcome.
and it's again like, and I don't know, I'm just wondering how it is now at school, like what type of, and I'm sure it changed because Gabrielle Union, she's just turned 50, so she was talking like I don't know 40, 30 years ago, however, when she was in, I don't know when she got her period, but anyway, and then how I had it, right? Or like I don't remember having any education, and then what you had
And mine was
some,
10 years ago.
yeah, you had some, but then it wasn't really.
No, it wasn't great. And I think a man taught it, which was even better.
The man taught it. Hide it. What a great lesson. Hide it. Hide because it's.
No, and for those of you who don't know, the vagina is just the opening canal. The entire thing is actually called the vulva, and that was something I just recently learned. And in the sex ed class, they didn't go over anything like that. And it was like, I can't believe I don't even know my own body part's name.
Yeah.
They didn't even teach that. So, something I wanted to ask you if you feel comfortable talking about is, are you on birth control currently? I feel like this is an interesting topic.
Yeah, I'm all pro birth control. Unlike people in the States where they saying that abortion should be illegal, birth control should be illegal, everything should be illegal. You know what? Why don't we, I am going to get in my soapbox. Yes, I am.
There she is.
Why don't we let women choose what they want to do with their body, okay? Mm-hmm. And don't be the judge of what I or any other woman wants to do with their body. Here's also a thing. When people say, oh, people that are, I don't believe that anybody is pro-abortion, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that nobody is out there saying, yay, let's all go get abortion, right? There are situations out there that women go through that sometimes abortion is necessary, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever the case may be. Again, it's her body and she should decide what she should do with her body. So nobody's out there saying, let's all go get abortion. But if abortion is needed, I feel like there should be...
It's not an easy...
safe place, right? And it's not an easy choice to do.
It's not an easy surgery. It's not like walking in and like, I'm just gonna get an abortion today, thank you.
Right, and it's emotionally painful, right? So if that
physically,
should be done, then there should be safe place to do it. What was your question before? What did you ask me? Because I went on my soapbox and I.
Oh, are you on birth control?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
And do you have a positive experience with birth control?
I do. I have IUD and I love it.
We have two very different stories here, which is kind of fun because I hate birth control. I don't think it should be taken away though, and I think it's everybody's right to do what they want, and I think if it works for your body, but it doesn't for mine.
So you said you hate birth control? Mm-hmm. That's a very strong word, and I want you to elaborate on that, why you hate it.
So I've had horrendous periods. I've just very painful cramps, and every time I've gone to the doctor, their response is to put me on birth control. So I remember in high school, the doctor put me on the NuvaRing. Do you know what that is? It's the like rubber band looking one.
Yeah,
and then you take it out once a month. And I remember I had the worst headaches. My body just doesn't react well with the hormones. I just had really bad headaches. I hated everyone. I just didn't feel like myself. So I just stopped it. And then I went in again to the doctors in college. This is a story. So, in college, I had a really bad cramp once that I actually like fainted from the pain.
Oh my.
Yeah, and so I went to the hospital, and I remember them looking in there, and they're like, it was a male doctor, which was really fun. That was great. And I remember he looked inside of my hoo-ha. I don't know. He spread the cheeks open, and went in there. His whole head, everything. No, I'm just kidding. Couldn't find anything wrong with me. It was like, you just have painful periods. And I was like, thumbs up. Thank you so much. Like, that was so unnecessary. So then I went to the school doctors, and I said I would have painful cramps. And they're like, okay, well, let's get you on some birth control. I was like, well, hormones aren't great for me. And they're like, let's put you on the lowest dose of an IUD. So I went on the IUD. Okay, so it gets even better. So
you were saying that so every time you would go and ask what something,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
I'm having, and I feel like this is something most women struggle with, is they go to a doctor and they say, I'm having a painful period, and they're like, their first instinct is to put them on birth control, which now that I've done research is not great. And I know doctors can't be experts in everything, but certain symptoms with periods are related to certain deficiencies and different things going on in the body, which I think is important for doctors to investigate instead of just throwing them on birth control to cover up the symptoms. So anyways, they recommended the IUD. And I remember I got it inserted, and it was so painful. And for you, those of you who've not had an IUD, those of you who have, you know what I'm talking about. They don't give you any painkillers or anything. You've had an IUD. Was it so painful?
No, for me, and I like IUD.
Yeah.
So for me, I've been now on it for almost close to 4 years, right? Because I got it after my son was born. So to insert in it, I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's for me, right? I'm just speaking from my experience. It wasn't painful, but it was very uncomfortable, right?
It's like crampy.
That's what it is. It's kind of like period cramp, right? So, but once it was there, it was.
Did you not feel anything?
I do not feel anything.
Did you not have like cramps for the next few days?
You know what? It's been such a long. I can't remember like right at the beginning.
Blocked out the pain. Too traumatic for you.
Like I had two childbirths, so pain. Like I don't know what pain anymore.
God, that's what I'm scared of, giving birth, because I can't handle this. But anyways, when I guess it was really painful for me. But I walked out of there and I went to work, and then later in the day, I fainted because I had because I had a cramp. And it was so painful, and I was working, I was a paddleboard instructor, and I was out in the sun, and I just fainted, and this woman was like, are you okay, miss? It was like, I was sitting down, so I like kind of like went unconscious, and I was like, yeah, I'm just having really bad cramps, and she gave me some ibuprofen, but...
Do you think you fainted from the sun or from the cramp?
It was a cramp. I remember, or it could have been both, but I remember having like a severe cramp. I was like, oh my God, this is bad. And then I called the doctors and I told them what happened, and they're like, yeah, like, that's okay. Like, they were just like, oh, it was kind of like I was a nuisance. I was calling them, and they're like, oh, just another female being dramatic about her body, right? Like, that was the response I got. And then, funny story, so I was with my parents, my family in Mexico.
Okay.
I think like a month later when I had my IUD.
After IUD.
After IUD. Quick story, I pulled out the IUD, but I'm going to tell you how I did it. But we were...
By yourself, DUI?
DIY.
Oh, no DUI. What is... Oh, DUI is when you're driving drunk.
I should have done it when I was on a... But anyways. We were in Mexico, and I was just, like, angry. I was crampy. It just never settled down for me, and I was like, I think it's the IUD. I got to get this thing out of me. And...
No.
It was late one night. Me and my brother were out drinking. And then he came back, you know, you drink in Mexico, and he was asleep, and there was a bathtub in there. And so I was like, if I sit in the I sat in the bathtub for an hour, and I watched YouTube videos about how to pull out an IUD by yourself. In the middle of Mexico. Got out of the bathtub. I was like, okay, I'm relaxed. Sorry, like, this is going to be very, like, graphic for a second. Stuck my hand up there. Found the string between my pointer and my middle finger. Barely grabbed it and pulled it out.
I'm having physical pains in my...
Hoo-ha? Yeah.
Yeah, right now as you're talking about this.
And I pulled it out. I felt like I gave birth to something. I was so proud of myself. I taped it in my diary and I still have it.
Did you do skin to skin? Also, do you know what skin to skin is?
No.
When you give birth to it, because you said I felt like I gave birth. So when you give birth to a child, right, and so you put your child,
Blood and all, and
it's very beautiful. Stop talking about it, childbirth like
fine.
that. So you put your child, like who is, of course, has no clothes on.
Juicy.
You put it on your bare skin,
Juicy child.
and so it's skin to skin. So did you put your IUD that you pulled out? It's
No.
it's a joke. Let's pass. I feel like I have to explain the joke to you, so it doesn't. Wow. So you pulled IUD by yourself.
By myself. And
Did you? Okay. So I have now so many questions. First of all, I feel like it's unsanitary.
yeah, probably. I washed my hands before I did it.
Did you go to the doctor of like when you came back from Mexico and you never had like any infections?
No,
or
I
anything
never
after
went to
that?
the doctor, but I did, the yearly checkup and they stick the whole spatula in there and I've never had infections.
Okay, so after that you went to the checkups, everything you checked.
Yeah, I didn't go like right after to the doctors.
But you went.
I probably should have, and don't take my advice and do it. I'm
Yeah,
not
that-
a doctor.
Yeah, don't pull that thing out of your hoo-ha by yourself. Please.
But I mean, if you pull tampons out, that's what my logic
Different
was.
thing. Different. No, not the same thing. No, guys, this is just.
Insanity.
It's one-off. It's one of those one-off stories.
And it was a little bit. It wasn't as painful as getting it inserted was pulling it out. There was like. I don't think I felt anything. I think there was like a slight cramp because it's going through your cervix.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, that's a fun story. Also, I want to tell you guys a funny story about funny periods. My best friend, about having shameful periods, going back to that topic again. One of my good friends in high school, when she first got her period, I remember she came to school crying and I was like, what happened? And she was like, I was in the dentist's office with my dad and my little sister, and I was in the bathroom, and my period started, and my sister started screaming, and she was, oh my God, there's blood, why are you bleeding? Because her younger sister didn't know what a period was and didn't understand. So she's screaming, so she runs out of the bathroom and goes get her dad, and she's running through the, dentist's office. My sister's bleeding out of her vagina, I don't know what's going on.
Oh my gosh.
And she was like, it was so embarrassing, and my dad comes into the bathroom, she was like, it was just a traumatic event, and I feel like that's,
Oh my.
built up shame, I'm sure
Everybody in the
everybody has a
dentist-
story about that.
Everybody in the dentist's office. Because when somebody comes and say my sister is bleeding without giving any more details,
And she was like, no, it's okay, I'm okay. So that, yeah. Anyways, so what type of IUD do you have?
the one where I don't have period.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. A friend of mine, we were talking, I talked to her before I decided to get this one. And so there's two different ones. There's one that you have period and it's heavy. And then there's another one
The copper one, right?
the copper one, yeah. And then there's another one where it's just local hormones, it's just,
The hormonal one?
yeah, but it's not supposed to.
Spread throughout your body.
Yeah, it's just what they call it is just local hormones. So before I did that, before I did the IUD, I did research, and then, of course, I talked to my girlfriends to see what their thoughts. And so a friend of mine said that she used to have the one that I have, the hormonal one, and she said
It's a Moderna?
Moderna, that it affected her, that she was also had mood swings, and she was just it affected her.
Lots of side effects, yeah.
It had those side effects for her, and so she said then she switched to the other one, and she's like, I don't mind the period, and so she has that one. She said I feel different, and for me, and again, it's like anything you try, right? Everybody have different reactions to it, right? So then, like I said, just like with anything, some people the reaction to different birth control is different. So for me, I have that one that has the local hormones, and I don't feel the effect on me like it did to my friend. So I like it, and on this one, I don't get any periods. I feel like I get maybe like a little, but it's not even to compare, right? Like just a little cramps, like when the period's supposed to come, but very, very mild.
Oh, that's awesome. What was your periods like before you got
Like,
that?
like when I have,
Yeah.
they, like, I wouldn't say that they were super painful. I mean, definitely the first 2 days they were painful, but I was kind of weird about taking medication, you know. So a good friend of mine, she would always take Midol, right? I think Midol, that's the right one. It's like a little blue pill, and I was like, I don't know. I just, and you know why I felt weird, and I don't know, like, what do you think of that? But because there's some women in the world, even in United States, other countries, that they can't, that they don't have access to feminine products, right? That they don't have access to this, simple medication that I myself can buy here. So I don't know if it's weird, but I felt like that was me somehow. I don't know if supporting is the right word, but I'm just gonna go with it because I'm like, I am so. What's the word? I am so lucky, right?
Yeah.
That I am so privileged that I have access to everything, but there's so many women and girls that that you hear that cannot go to school for a week because they don't have the access to care.
And then, that's how things, and then women can't go to school and they never finish school, and then it just, the cycle of, circulates.
Yeah, so I was weird. I would have sometimes painful period, but I wouldn't take any medication for
No,
it.
that's impressive. But yeah, I understand what you're saying because that's so sad to think about, that girls out there don't have access to this, and fighting through something like that is just...
I just think that sometimes we have so easy comparatively, right? Again, I don't want to say, because I don't want to say that everybody in the United States has easy access, because we don't, right? But right, like, I know you and me can go to Target, get whatever feminine product we need, and that's it, right? We pay money and we are on our way. But there's so many women here, even in the United States and in other countries, that don't have access to that. And so I encourage you out there, our listeners, to find organization that support this type of work, to where you can either...
and we'll find something. I was going to say, let's find something and we'll put it in the comment section or in the description for our podcast.
Find some organization that do this type of work, to where you can either donate money to where they, and they buy the products, or you can buy products.
Or
and
just spreading the word about what they do, I feel like, is also huge if you can't
yes
donate any money. Yeah, there was this organization, I can't remember. I'll find it and I'll put it in the description. And they actually created jobs for women in these, countries that weren't able to afford
feminine
care. It was actually, I think there's a specific country in Africa, I can't remember the name, but they had the women create the feminine products and then sell them to women out there. So it was like a whole cycle. So the women were making money, and then it was like really affordable for the women to buy them, and vice versa.
Women supporting women. That's awesome. Isabel, I wanted to ask you a question, kind of how you take care of yourself now when it comes to your period and dealing with cramps, because you mentioned at the beginning all of these horrific stories about pulling IUDs and having cramps and fainting, and doctors kind of weren't able to help you, or maybe you didn't find the right one. So I wanted to ask you what you do now, and how you deal now with your period, how you take care of yourself now.
Watch lots of TikTok videos. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yes, people, TikTok, watch social media. That's where you do all of your research.
No, but in all honesty, it's sad because I feel like my story's not even that bad, and I've heard way worse horror stories. But I've done a lot of research on my own that's really helped me, and I think it's important to talk to your doctors. But in a sense, I feel like my doctors, they haven't failed me, but they've almost let me down, and I don't think it's their fault. I just don't think it's a well-studied topic, unfortunately.
Well, it's your story, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And if you feel like that they did, right? Because, yes, you should always, like, we are not a doctors. So this advice, or not even, these stories are from our own experience, right? So, like we said, please don't pull your IUDs out. Go to the doctor and do it there, you know, and
Pull out your IUD in front of the doctor. No.
have them do it. But so these are just our stories, right? So so when Isabella is talking about the doctors, it's her story. So if that's perfectly
Yeah,
fine
and
to feel like
so-
that.
This is going to surprise people, but I hated my period. I feel like there's a lot of shame of, oh, I have to go through this thing once a month. This is gross. But I've done a lot of work, and I actually love my period. I know how to work with it now, and that's something that I've had to put a lot of work into it. But I hope my story, I'll talk about more what I've had to do will inspire other people, because if you got to deal with it, you might as well make the best out of it. But I've read a lot of books. I've read the Period Repair Manual. I'll put these links in our description. And this one was about repairing your period, and this was written by a doctor. And then Hormone Intelligence, about how to balance your hormones. But, for example, I have a lot of cramps, and in the Period Repair Manual, she talks about how a lot of women are actually magnesium deficient. Just with everyday stress and everything that's going on. When we get stressed, our magnesium depletes itself. So our body flushes it out to prepare for battle or whatever, because magnesium helps relax the body. And we have so many more stressors now than we did back in the day. And back in the day, it was a tiger. Now, you know, you get an email and like your hormones get flushed with adrenaline.
Right.
And that magnesium is released. And there's a lot of magnesium in leafy greens and all that, but like I said, everything is modified, so we're not getting enough of that. So one of her recommendations was try magnesium. So I've been taking magnesium, and it has helped my cramps immensely. I don't have fainting spells anymore or anything, and I still have painful periods. I'm not going to say my periods are a delight and a joy to have.
Right.
But that has really helped. Another one that really helped for me is I get really bad, like, breast tenderness and swelling. And she talked about how that might be a sign of iodine deficiency. So I've been incorporating iodine into my diet, and I've actually noticed a difference. And she also mentioned in this book where it takes up to 3 months to start noticing a difference, because, you know, it takes time for your body to absorb these vitamins and process them. So I just like to keep that in mind whenever I'm doing things, because it does take time. Something else that I've noticed, I don't know what it is, but in the summer my periods aren't as painful, so I think it's a vitamin D deficiency. So
Maybe, yeah, because in the summer we are outside more.
so I'm gonna try, because my periods are always more painful during the winter. B vitamins have helped me. Another big one, this is funny, I saw this on TikTok. This girl was talking about, she's like, if you don't want painful period cramps, don't eat dairy. And I'm lactose intolerant, so I shouldn't be eating dairy anyways, but I tried a no month of not eating dairy with magnesium and all of these other things, and it was great. I felt
Did it help?
Yeah, it did help. And then another one for cramps, like Irina said, I don't want to take ibuprofen all the time. It's not like it's awful, and I do it in emergency situations, but I feel like it's not great for your body to be just pounding down ibuprofens. So turmeric is something that's really helped me. Turmeric and chamomile tea helps with my cramps.
I feel like turmeric is very like trendy right now. You know, it's this spice that people used before, but now, you know, sometimes people can take something that, you know, that people used for generation, but this hipsters will do it and say, oh, it's you know, it's almost like
It's the next big thing. Turmeric solves everything.
It's the next big thing, right?
Yeah, your eyes falling out. They're like, honey, just take some turmeric and walk it off. You'll be fine.
Turmeric. My husband used turmeric in a lot of cooking. So does my mom. So it's yeah, but
It's probably why you never had period cramps, because your mom uses it.
well, I also have IUD, so that's the big reason.
Well, yeah, okay. But also, this is a fun fact that I realized is I'll get into details here, but the work day is built on men's hormones and not women's hormones.
Oh my gosh, I'm so surprised.
I know. So I'm not an expert on it. From what I remember, I think men's testosterone, it's like highest in the morning and then it's like lowest at night. And they're on a 24-hour cycle. Women are on, as we know, a monthly cycle. So we have different hormones for different phases in our cycle throughout the month, which is really interesting. And so this period repair book has taught me a lot about the different hormones that I have each month and how to live my best life according to these hormones. So this is some fun facts that I wanted to share with you. So did you know that there's like different ways you can work out within different times of your cycle that is like not best for you, but like you're stronger at certain times in your month than you are at others, and you're better at cardio than other times in your month than others.
Really?
Which is interesting. Yeah.
That would be helpful to know, when I had my period.
Right. And so I wanted to go through this. So first I'm just going to go through the cycles, which if you're bored, you can black this out. But there's the menstrual phase. There's 4 cycles, or there's 4 phases. There's the menstrual phase, which is actually the beginning of the cycle. Did you think it was the end of the cycle? I thought it was the end of the cycle, when your period starts.
I haven't had for so long, I don't know what the cycles are anymore.
You don't even care. Okay. Anyways, when your period starts, that is the first day of your cycle. And then your follicular phase is when your body is getting ready to release the egg. And then you have the ovulation, where the egg is released. That is the middle of the cycle. And then you have the luteal phase, which is your body, preparing for the egg. And then if there's no egg that's developed, then it sheds its lining, and then all over again. But let's start with the menstrual phase. So your period started. During this time of the month, it is best to do like light exercises. This is common sense. I think this one is common sense. Light exercises like yoga and stretching and whatnot, because your body's recovering clearly. And this is the time actually where you don't want to see people, like your hormones like actually reject people. And I've become aware of this. So I know when my period's coming, I'm like, it's time to like settle in, journal, meditate, because you're best like...
Because is that when you become like the hormonal and you angry and you can...
No, this is right before. But it's also during this, but it's like your brain is better at like processing, like thinking about things and like starting new projects and things like that matter. Okay. Anyways, that's about that. Just relax, watch TV, reflect time inwards. The follicular phase, when your body's getting ready to release the egg. This is when, your estrogen is increased. And this is the time when women are most likely to cheat on their husbands.
Or boyfriends, or
boyfriends, or significant other.
Significant other.
Significant others. Partners, which is funny because this is the time, so back in caveman periods, when you were looking for a mate, because this is, when you were likely to get pregnant and any species wants to reproduce. So this is the time when, now that I know these things, I notice is like when you want to go out, when you'll be the most social, when you be the like most flirtatious, actually when you have like the most confidence in yourself. So during this time of the month, you're really good at, strength training and like harder exercises like that, because your body has more strength to fight off potential males that you don't want to sleep with. Which is like horrible, but like, now that I know this, I'm like, I'll do my strength training during this phase of my cycle, which is really funny. And then...
to fight the man that you don't want.
Exactly.
This invisible man. Are you physically fighting them in the gym?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes I do. I just go up to a man and I just punch him in the face.
Also, don't do that.
Don't do that. I was just joking. But... emotion-wise, you'll have a boost in energy and positive mood during this time. Ovulation, so this is when you are like fertile, right? So you have extreme confidence during this time.
Even more than you had?
More before. You are a badass woman. This is a time when you have like extreme energy, high HIIT workouts, high intensity interval training, so strength training with cardio. You're going to be able to do this. Your body's going to be at its like highest peak. But ovulation, I think it's only for one day. The egg is released for one day. And then the next phase is the luteal phase. So this is
The end?
this is like the end of it. This is when your body is building up the lining and preparing for an egg that has potentially been spermatized, or what is it? Fertilized or whatever. Fertilized. So this is the time when it's actually, you want to be with like community based. So you're actually like very loving and like affectionate towards like your significant other or people around you, because babies and your offspring does best in a community based in communities. So this is when you're more likely to be, you're really friendly and you want to make a lot of friends and just like have that good community. So if you are potentially pregnant, your baby has a community to grow up in.
How wonderful.
Yeah. And so this is the time to do exercises that stress relief. Like I do a lot of cardio during this time. I feel like my body performs really well with cardio during this. And if you want to learn more about things like this matter, I learned this all from the Period Repair Manual. So
okay, and we will put these two books if you are interested to read them, because obviously as we hear Isabella speak, she learned so much and how to love your body and love your period and how to take care of yourself during that time. Exactly.
And so she talks about how your period each month is like, a sign of how your body's performing and if you need to do other things. And like I said, cramps was a sign that I was deficient in certain vitamins. And so now I look at it as a different way of like internalizing what my body needs and how well I'm performing and if there's a lack in anywhere, instead of like, this awful thing. It's a time to reflect inward and being like, is there anything that's off balance?
But I like what you said, that now you know what you need to give to your body for you to feel better in it, right? And I think it's important to know all these things, right? Mm-hmm. You just got more knowledge, and knowledge is power.
And I feel like I have a much better lifestyle, and I feel much better about my life and my body. I feel like I had like I hated my body. We were butting heads, and now I'm like one with my body. I'm like, and I don't take magnesium every day. Like, I'm not good at that. And so when I slack on it, I can tell.
You feel it.
I feel it, and I get worse cramps. And it's like, okay, my body's like, if you don't do this, this happens. But it's just a nice way to, like, reflect on what I need.
Well, Bella, my boo, you did such an amazing job doing the research. Isabella is the researcher between the two of us. And because you love, and I love how much you love this topic, right? Aww. And how much passion you have in your voice talking about it. And I think it's so important for us to share the stories, right? And we hope that if there's somebody out there who's having like all this, cramps or painful period or something, that these books that Bella recommend help you, or her stories. Again, don't take the IUD out. Don't do that. Don't take that advice.
I don't recommend it.
Not recommended. But you know what I mean? Like, sharing the story is I'm hoping that is helpful for people out there. And the period, our bodies, what we're going through shouldn't be shameful. We should talk about it.
No, I think thank you so much, honey boo boo.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that we normalize this conversation so women can feel empowered in their body, because it wasn't until I read these books that it was a completely different perspective, of like 360 turn of how they talked about it and viewed it, and it was just so accepting. And so I hope that if somebody's going through this, they know that they can have a positive relationship with their body and they don't need to fight with it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this conversation was enlightening for you. I know it would be uncomfortable for some, but if you are uncomfortable, ask yourself why, right? You just said we should normalize this. So yeah, ask yourself why if you are uncomfortable, but hopefully not, we hopefully we made it fun for you to listen and share some funny and crazy stories. But just so you know, we are all badass women doing badass things, and we can do anything we want.
Yeah.
And on this note, I'm Irina Barnett.
And I'm Isabella, and I, peace out.